But we begin tonight at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, where President Obama has just launched a new Get Out the Vote effort, simulcast to universities across the country. When the president spoke at this same Wisconsin campus in early 2008 during the presidential primaries, the 17,000-strong crowd that turned out to see him that night in 2008 made major headlines for his then campaign. 17,000 people turning out at a campaign rally. Well, tonight, Mr. Obama was back at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and the crowd this time was bigger. It was a bigger crowd this time to see him as president. Speaking outside at the campus instead of inside at the Kohl Center Arena like he did last time, the president tonight addressed a crowd that university police estimate at more than 26,000 people. Watch.
The prediction among the pundits is this is going to be a bloodletting for Democrats. That's what they're saying in Washington. And what they're saying is, and the basis of their prediction is that all of you who worked so hard in 2008 aren't going to be as energized, aren't going to be as engaged. They say there is an enthusiasm gap, and that the same Republicans and the same policies that left our economy in a shambles and the middle class struggling might ride right back into power. Now, that's what they're saying. I'm not making this up. You guys read the papers. You guys are watching the television. They're basically saying that you're apathetic, you're disappointed, well, we're not sure that we're going to turn out. Wisconsin, we can't let that happen. We cannot sit this one out. We can't let this country fall backwards because the rest of us didn't care enough to fight. The stakes are too high for our country and for your future. And I am going to get out there and fight as hard as I can, and I know you are too, to make sure we keep moving forward.
The president's voice straining as he shouts to make sure we keep moving forward, to make his case for Democratic voters to turn out in the fall, to not just raise the volume, but to try to make the case. The president listed what his administration has achieved in its first 20 months.
To help middle-class families get ahead, we passed a tax cut for 95% of working families. I want to repeat that. We cut taxes for 95% of working families because if you were listening to the other side, you'd think we raised taxes. But again, we deal in facts. And the fact is, we cut taxes for 95% of working families. We passed 16 different tax cuts for America's small business owners who create the majority of jobs in this country. We passed health care reform that will stop insurance companies from denying you coverage or dropping you coverage because you're sick.
Notice that was not supposed to be an applause line. As soon as he said, we passed health care reform, crowd goes wild. Imagine that. People like it. They really like it. Imagine.
We have made progress over the last 20 months. And that is the progress that you worked so hard for in 2008. Now, we didn't get everything done. Sometimes people say, well, this item not done, that item Well, I've only been here 2 years, guys. If you look at the checklist, we've already covered about 70%, so I figured I need to have something to do for the next couple of years. And look, here's the fact. Here's the fact is that we're not where we need to be, not even close. The hole that we're climbing out of is a deep one. I want you to understand the magnitude of what we've gone through. This is deeper than the last 3 recessions combined. Most of the jobs we lost took place before any of our economic policies had a chance to take effect. And on top of that, the middle class had been struggling for more than a decade, and jobs had been getting shipped overseas, and millions of families were still treading water. Millions are still barely able to make their bills or make the mortgage. I hear the stories every day. I read them in just heartbreaking letters that I receive each night. So I understand that people are frustrated. I understand people are impatient with the pace of change. Of course they are. Look, I'm impatient. But I also know this. Now is not the time to lose heart. Now is not the time to give up. We do not quit. And we cannot forget that this nation has been through far worse, and we have come out stronger from war to depression to the great struggle for equal rights and civil rights. We do not quit. If everybody who fought for change in 2008 shows up to vote in 2010, we will win. We will win. The polls say the same thing. We will win. So what the other side, you know what the other side is counting on this time around? They're counting on you staying home. They're counting on your silence. They're counting on amnesia. They're betting on your apathy, especially because a lot of you are young folks. So, Madison, you've got to prove them wrong. Let's show Washington one more time. Change doesn't come from the top. It doesn't come from millions of dollars of special interest funded attack ads. Change happens from the bottom up. Change happens because of you. Change happens because of you. Change happens because of you.
Joining us now is Huffington Post political reporter Sam Stein. Sam, thanks very much for your time. It's nice to see you.
Hi, Rachel.
So this is not the kind of event, not the kind of speech we have seen from President Obama in a long time. Is this a one-off, or does your reporting suggest that this is a new White House strategy for the elections?
Well, I think it's part of a broader new strategy designed ostensibly to get the base out, to get Democratic voters more excited. And, you know, it was much more motivational than scolding, which is what we've seen from the White House in the past couple days, if not weeks. He's telling the base, you know, I realize that things haven't been perfect, but we've gone so far. Let's do 2 more years. And, you know, the thing is that when you tell voters to come out because there's more to achieve, it's much more effectual than, I think, saying, you know, stop whining. We've done all this. Now you should go vote again. And I think the president probably took a cue from the coverage that he and his vice president got over the past couple of days and refigured the message.
The stop whining strategy is known around our offices and along of the snarkier corners of the internet as the punch the hippie strategy, as I'm sure you are familiar with. Is it your sense that the punch the hippie strategy is getting enough pushback from the White House, that the pushback is bugging them, that they might actually let that go and stop yelling at liberals and instead turn to more of what the president was doing tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a general frustration within the White House from the people I talk to who are high up who they think they don't get enough credit for what they've done, and in some respects they're right. On the same hand, they realize that there's really no benefit, I guess, to punching the hippie, to saying that they're whiners, or to telling voters to buck up. A lot of people out there are frustrated not just because of certain political policies having been passed, but because the economy still sucks. And to tell them that they shouldn't be upset and that they should go out and vote for the president is sort of inherently dismissing the struggles that they feel.
Who is more mobilizable, which is not a word, for the White House right now?
For now it is, yeah. Okay.
Who do they see as as a group that is more likely to be mobilized, to get out the vote, to be enthusiastic about voting for November? Is it young voters, the kind of people who you would have in college audiences like you saw tonight, young voters, of course, who don't usually turn out in great numbers for midterm elections, or are they likely to get more distance out of trying to motivate their actual base, the traditional Democratic base, including union members, liberals, and that sort of thing?
Sure. Well, the two overlap in many respects, but you're right to note that historically the youth vote doesn't really come out not only midterm elections but presidential elections. Obama's 2008 campaign was the exception to the rule. That said, there's an important element to this election that very few people have actually talked about, and that is that this is the first midterm election in the age of social media. And I say that Facebook, Twitter, all of these tools are there for politicians to really take advantage of, and Obama was able to do that in 2008. The problem is that he hasn't engaged the same people in the way that would be productive for 2010, and it remains to be seen whether groups like Organizing for America or the White House itself can actually flip the switch and just sort of reach out to these voters in the way they did in the presidential campaign and get them to the polls again.
Wisconsin Senator Russ Feingold facing stiff competition from a very, very conservative challenger, Republican Ron Johnson. Senator Feingold, I thought it was interesting to see, was not expected to go to the event tonight. There are at least reports that he wasn't going to go to this event. University of Wisconsin at Madison, I think, is his alma mater. He did end up coming to tonight's rally. Any idea what changed there?
Well, from what I've heard and talking to people close to the senator, it was never a matter of trying to duck the president. Russ Feingold, of course, is one of the most dedicated progressives in Congress. If anything, he's critical for Obama from the so-called left of the spectrum. He had conflicts with the Senate. They cleared up, and he ended up at the speech. You know, far more common is when conservative Democrats are distancing themselves from Obama, as you see with people like Representative Chet Edwards, who was floated to be Obama's vice president by Nancy Pelosi during the campaign, and now is up on air with an advertisement in which he touts his work against not only Obama but Nancy Pelosi herself. So when you look at these conservative districts, you see distance from Obama. With people like Russ Feingold, I don't think there's any meaningful distance that it's being trying to create there.
A vigorous Democratic Party would, of course, punish that sort of thing instead of rewarding it by catering to it. But
no, of course,
then we wouldn't have jobs.
Sure.
Sam Stein, political reporter for the Huffington Post. Sam, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rachel. Take care.